Hey y'all, it's Dr. Jada, and welcome back to Mind Matters with Dr. Jada. I tell you, you have to brace yourself because there is a TikTok phenomenon that has just taken media by storm. And if you do not know her, her name is Reesa Teesa, and she shares a story about her ex-husband's narcissistic and manipulative ways in, get this, a 50-part story timeline. It is pretty incredible. I've seen her on Good Morning America. I've seen her on the Tamron Hall show. I've seen her do so many different interviews. And so I just thought it would be an interesting opportunity for us to talk about all things mental health as it relates to being in relationships that definitely probably showed signs of deception, but oftentimes we ignore red flags. So this video is going to be about just the psychology behind Reesa Teesa's marriage, and the name of her TikTok series is Who the F Did I Marry? And I know some of y'all like, I didn't go through what Ressa went through, but I think about that. I think about that all the time. Who did I marry, and why did I marry them? But no, in all seriousness, we're going to really peel the layers back on this, and I'm just going to give my honest opinion. I'm going to share some things as well because, um, I've been in relationships, and I've always, looked at them like, what is wrong here? There's something off, and sometimes when you're in a relationship, it's difficult to identify the red flags when we're being love bombed and when we're being love manipulated and when the person just seems so incredibly perfect, but there's something just a little bit off. So we're going to dive into that. We are going to look at this topic today, and the topic is deception in relationships. So my goal here is to, if you're in a relationship now or you plan to be in a relationship, I want to help you spot the signs of deception that you might, under normal circumstances, overlook, just like Reesa did in her story. We'll look at her story, we'll peel the layers back, we'll look at portions of her story. And of course, if you have questions, I'd love for you to go ahead and put them in the comment section, and I'll make sure to address them in the next video. And so just a quick little summary, if you do not know Reesa Teesa's story. She is a TikTok storyteller, and she's had some other things that she's done on TikTok, but this one just happened to be the one. It's the one that I want to say now she's even signed with CAA. They're representing her, and just her honesty, telling her story, just being honest and telling her story has really changed her life. Now, she's got a lot of backlash as well. People are cruel and they say, some horrible things. But again, I'm just a believer. I'm a believer that if you own your story, if you own your stuff, if you learned from it and you do the work, then you're not the same person that you were when you went through whatever it was you went through. Because at the end of the day, we all have a personal developmental journey that we are on. And if we're not growing, we're dying. So I just feel like I want to say kudos to you, Reesa, for sharing your story. And so it's amazing. It began in 2020. And she's in her 30s. She's from Atlanta, and she connected with, and I want to say this name is a given name, name that she gave him, and she calls him Legion. And she met him on a dating platform. And of course, their relationship developed rather quickly and accelerated by the onset of the pandemic. And so it's funny because I have so many clients that came in and like, I got in this relationship during the pandemic because I was so lonely and now I can't get out of it. And so, of course, being locked in closed spaces, not being able to socialize and go out and engage with people and enter into the normality of our social lives, it caused many people to develop COVID-19 pandemic relationships. And this just happened to be one of them. And so Reesa and Legion spent most of their time together. And they went test driving cars and touring houses and, um, just building a life together, learning about each other. And if you haven't seen the 50-part series, at least go back and at least go and look at some of it. You may not have, I want to say it's almost 8 hours. You may not have 8 hours in your day to or in your week to listen to the full 8 hours, but listen to portions of it, because for some reason her story has resonated with millions, millions of people. And talk about going viral. I mean, she went like quadruple viral, something insane. But the reason why is because she was honest, she told her story, and it resonated. And there were millions of women who were like, oh my God, oh Lord, this is me. Or it was, oh my goodness, I understand her. I understand how she got manipulated. I understand how she melted under the love bombing of a manipulative narcissist. So, because so many people resonated, that's why I'm here today, because I think it's important to talk about it. So, Reesa's narrative, she goes into all the details. And what I love about it is she literally was like, I'm getting ready for work. I'm, driving in the car. I'm getting ready for bed. And she's just talking. And then I'm like, how did she remember all of that? Like I was impressed just about how she, categorized all the things that she talked about, just the facts and her memory for remembering every little detail. But she recounts all of their interactions with, various brands, where they went, the furniture stores, like Rooms to Go, to like Red Lobster and the Cheesecake Factory. And then they went house hunting. And then they were online searching for homes. And, they were on realtor.com and Zillow.com. And she even included specific car details, like what she wanted in her BMW. And then all along, while she's engaging in these love bomb type of encounters with him, she starts to see some red flags, but she doesn't necessarily listen or adhere to them right away. So despite the red flags, despite her doubts, she really found, and she's so honest in her depiction of this story, but she finds like solace in kind of these experiences that she's having with him. And she's literally clinging to the dreams and the aspirations that she has of realizing this amazing life that Legion promised her. And so, of course, now on the flip side of this, some people have said, oh, she was just, loving the materialism of what was happening and taking place with Legion. But I think it's deeper than that. I think it is so deeper than that. I think that when you are hungry and thirsty for love, when you've been lonely for so long, and then all of a sudden you have connectivity. And don't forget, connection is a basic fundamental human need. We have to have it to survive. When you are starved of connection, and then someone comes along and offers you the very thing that you are thirsty for, then of course we would miss the red flags, because we are human. And so, of course, her story took a dark turn when she confronted Legion and he was arrested for outstanding warrants, leaving him homeless without possessions, without anything. And so while the core of this story highlights the themes of like mental illness, homelessness, and the pitfalls of, well, I'd like to say capitalism or materialism, and sometimes just the fulfillment of our deepest dreams, desires, and expectations, it really was the extravagant consumerist facade that captivated most of the audiences who were like, oh my God, I can't believe that this happened to Reesa. And then, of course, even some of the brands that Reesa mentioned in her story jumped on the bandwagon, offering her prizes in her comment section and adding to this very kind of surreal narrative and storyline overall. So in her very latest update, she's still waiting for that BMW that was that was promised. And unfortunately, she had to face some harsh realities. And that is that she met, fell in love with, married, and divorced a pathological liar and narcissist. And so if you haven't seen it, take a look at her interview with Robin on Good Morning America. It was pretty awesome. So with that being said, what I'd like to do right now is dive into the psychology behind this very impactful story. And so what I think happens, and I think, let me be transparent here for a moment, because I can certainly say without a shadow of a doubt that at least one of my relationships in my past was certainly with a love bombing, narcissistic, pathological liar. And there was a lot of shame surrounding that encounter, because even I said, how did I get here? Like, what is this? And so since Reesa Teesa has come forward and talked about her story, there are so many people going, wait a minute, I recognize this, or I recognize that experience, or I understand and recognize that behavior. And so if you haven't had this experience, or if you feel like you might be in a relationship right now with someone like this, let me help you. Because we are going to use Reesa's story as a powerful example of how deception itself can wreak havoc on our lives. But I think it's also a valuable lesson in understanding the psychological dynamics at play. So let's go ahead and break this down. Number one, gaslighting and manipulation. And so gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation where the abuser makes the victim doubt their own reality, where the abuser makes the victim doubt their own reality. In Reesa's case, her ex-husband, again, who she calls Legion, repeatedly manipulated her perceptions. Now, this is so deep. It is so deep. Why? Because a narcissist knows exactly what they are doing when they are gaslighting you, because they're going to make you doubt what you believe is real. And they're going to use your emotions to manipulate you and use your own perceptions and flip it around to make you think that you are crazy. That's how it works. In the story, Reesa talks about how Legion promises her a new house. So what does he do? He knows that Reesa wants a house. He knows that Reesa is lonely. He knows that Reesa is just longing for a relationship. So he says, I'm going to give you everything that you want, but he fails to deliver. So he promises the house and a luxurious lifestyle. But as time goes on, none of the promises materialize. So this constant manipulation, of course, would leave anybody feeling confused and doubting their own judgment. And I know some of y'all, ladies, You like that right now. You're like, wait a second, I'm married to someone who's been promising me a new house for 10 years and we still living. No. The reality is not everyone is a narcissistic pathological liar. However, I think it's time for anyone, not just women, could be men, for anyone to be willing to look at our blind spot. All of us have a blind spot. If you are familiar with the Jari window, now I just took a quick detour from this because I think that this is important here in this moment. We all have blind spots, but when we pretend we don't have blind spots, that makes us even more blind. The Jari window is a concept where there are areas of our understanding and our perception and our viewing of oneself where there are people who can see information and knowledge about us that we can't see. That would be the blind spot. There's information about ourselves that we know and other people know. There's information about ourselves that we don't know and other people don't know. And the concept of the Jari window is that there is an area where other people can see our blind spot and we can't. And so one of the things that I do with my girlfriends, there's 6 of us, and from time to time, we call each other on our crap, and we really put ourselves in a position to expose the blind spots or expose those areas of ourselves that we can't see, because that's the whole point. We don't know what we don't know. And you don't know what you don't know. That's why it's called a blind spot. All right. So number 2, the impact of deception on mental health. So deception can have a profound impact on our mental health, leading to feelings of betrayal, confusion, and emotional distress. So more specifically, in Reesa's story, it's really a testament of the devastation that takes place and the devastating effects of being deceived. And here's the key: by someone that we trust. Being deceived and betrayed by someone that we trust. Now, throughout her videos, Reesa, she shares her journey about just coping with the aftermath of this deception, and she highlights the importance of course, seeking support from trusted friends and family members, and most of all, mental health professionals. So she really did her work. And so just remember this: the impact of deception is like a mini trauma. I do believe that this was a traumatic experience for Reesa, and in that trauma, she will have to peel those layers back, do some work so that she can, re-engage. And my hope is that she has not lost faith in what God has called her to do, just in her life in general. But it seems like her story is definitely connecting on a very impactful level for millions of people worldwide. And number 3, coping mechanisms and self-empowerment. Now, in the face of deception, it's crucial to, of course, prioritize self-care and empowerment. And in Reesa's story, she demonstrates that. She demonstrates the power of resilience and the importance of setting boundaries in relationships. Despite what she went through, she was able to gain agency or reclaim her agency because she told her story. She didn't let her story manipulate her into silence. What happened to her, her experiences, Legion, this horrible time that she went through, she did not let it rob her of who she is as a person. And that's the resilience in going through any traumatic experience. So She found the strength in setting boundaries and seeking support and ultimately empowering herself. And here's the key: to break free from the cycle of deception. Remember, predators groom to conquer. Predators groom to conquer. They groom the victim so that the victim lowers their defense. Then they pounce and they destroy and conquer. It's a cycle. And that is what happened to Reesa, and that's what's happening to some of you. You're caught in a cycle, in a web of deception. And unfortunately, you can't break that cycle unless you have support, unless you're intentional. And here's the key: unless you are aware of your blind spot. And sometimes the blind spot is, I want happiness so desperately bad that I'm willing to sacrifice what I believe to get it. I'm willing to sacrifice what I see, quote unquote, the red flags. So again, the cycle of deception has to be broken. Here's number 4: understanding and supporting loved ones with mental illness. So Reesa's story also shed light on a very interesting component of mental well-being, and that is on the complexities of loving someone with mental illness. So Legion's diagnoses of bipolar disorder and schizophrenia added just another layer of complexity to their relationship. Sometimes, I mean, it's difficult. I have so many clients who come in that I work with, and their issue is not necessarily themselves. It's they're married to someone who has a personality disorder, or they're in a relationship with someone who has major depressive disorder, or they're in a relationship with someone who is a high functioning is on the spectrum, high functioning autism. And so Legion's diagnoses of bipolar definitely complicated their relationship. And so I believe that it's so very important to recognize the impact of mental illness on relationships and to offer support and understanding to loved ones who may be struggling. And of course, encouraging to seek professional help can make the world of difference. But here's the thing: mental health issues, that behavior is not an excuse to hurt and disrupt the lives of others. And so that's where boundaries have to be set in place, and that's where the real work has to be done. Here's number 5: breaking the cycle of toxic relationships, breaking the cycle of toxicity. So Reesa's story serves as a reminder: if you are in a toxic relationship, it's time to break free and prioritize your own well-being by recognizing red flags. And I'm going to do a separate video on recognizing red flags. But what's important is recognizing the red flags early. That is the key, because once you're in it, then you become desensitized to the red flags, and then you don't even see them. You've just accepted them and you move on in the relationship, and a little piece of you is dying every day. So by recognizing the red flags early on and taking action, that means getting the help you need, seeking that help, can create a healthier, happier you, and potentially you can engage in healthier, happier relationships. So just remember this: you deserve to be treated with respect and honesty in your relationships. You deserve to be treated with respect and honesty in your relationships. So don't hesitate to reach out for support if you find yourself in a situation like Reesa's. That's why we do what we do as mental health counselors and licensed professional counselors and marriage and family counselors. That's why we love doing what we do. And now, finally, in Reesa's story, loneliness can cloud our judgment and make us more susceptible to overlooking the red flags in relationships. We can feel lonely and disconnected. And when we feel lonely, we may be more willing to overlook the warning signs or dismiss our intuition in favor of companionship. And remember what I said, there's nothing wrong with that because we have to have connectivity. It's a need that we have. So in Reesa's case, she was initially swept up in just the excitement. And oh, Lord, I've been there. I've been there. And I'm sure many of you have too, but just swept up in the excitement of the promises. Reesa was swept up in the excitement of Legion's promises, longing for companionship and connection. And her desire for closeness may have made her more willing to overlook the inconsistencies or the discrepancies in his story. So it's just so important. It's essential to address our feelings of loneliness, even if we're in a relationship, because sometimes loneliness leads us to do things within our marriages and relationships that we shouldn't do. So I think that that's important to consider as well. So address those feelings of loneliness and seek meaningful connections based on, of course, mutual respect and honesty. And of course, by prioritizing our emotional well-being and just really kind of cultivating fulfilling relationships, we can protect ourselves. We can protect ourselves from falling into the trap of deception. And so hopefully something that I've said in this video has helped you. And I just believe that all of us have the power. We've been blessed and graced with the power of God to make healthy decisions, to look deeper into why we are here on this earth. Are we making the right connections? Are we setting those healthy boundaries? We have free moral agency. And in that free moral agency, we have the power to choose, but we have to choose with wisdom. And that wisdom is a deep inner spiritual connection that allows us to know the difference between right and wrong, sin and righteousness, good and bad, lies versus truth. To be able to know whether or not the person we are allowing into our space is going to add to us, going to multiply what we've already been given, our God-given abilities, or is that person going to subtract from us, leaving us depleted, neglected, and confused? So remember, healthy relationships are built on trust, communication, and mutual respect. And if you're struggling with loneliness or navigating a challenging relationship, don't hesitate to reach out for support. You, my dear, deserve to be valued and respected in all of your relationships. So take care. And until next time, have a great one. And don't forget, please, please hit the subscribe button for me. Hit the like button and share this video. If you know someone who may be able to use this video, please, by all means, share. And I'll see you next time.